Can you believe the incredible history of the WNBA? Now that the women's college basketball season is over, there's new excitement for the WNBA season and draft. Now that we've had an incredible new crop of talent coming into the league, there seems to be more excitement than ever. All-time great Caitlin Clark is joining the league, as well as LSU superstar Angel Reese and South Carolina's Camila Cardoso. All three have been superstars in their sport. This by far has been the most exciting women's college basketball season we've had in decades. I would venture to say since the 90s. Now that we're getting a brand new face, a brand new crop of WNBA future superstars, let's take a look at the exciting history of the WNBA and what it's become today. For those who don't know, the WNBA is a professional basketball league for women, and they had their first season in 1997. The league has grown over the past 2 decades in popularity due to more talented players and more excitement over the women's college basketball season and those players entering the WNBA. The league currently has 12 teams with a plan for a 13th team coming in 2025, and there are expectations more teams will come in the short future. The WNBA would be born on April 24th, 1996. They would come out of the NBA Board of Governors due to the fact that women's college basketball in the 90s was becoming more and more popular and more competitive, with superstars like Rebecca Lobo, Lisa Leslie, and Cheryl Swoops all becoming the face of the league. The new WNBA was recently formed to compete with the American Basketball League, another professional women's basketball association that was formed in the fall of 1996, but would only last 2 years until the 1998-1999 season. This was due to the fact that the NBA was backing the WNBA. With the backing of the NBA, they knew they would have a strong base to get fan support in specific cities. This meant the WNBA would start with 8 teams, all in local areas with strong NBA bases. That would be the Charlotte Sting, the Cleveland Rockers, the Houston Comets, and the New York Liberty in the Eastern Conference. And then in the Western Conference, we would have the Los Angeles Sparks, the Phoenix Mercury, Sacramento Monarchs, and the Utah Stars. Now, if you're a WNBA fan today, you recognize the fact that many of those teams are no longer in existence. That is because the WNBA was learning through trial and error. They were seeing what areas could support a women's basketball team and what areas could garner enough attention for those teams. With the backing of the NBA and the run of the 1996 U.S. women's national team in the 1996 Summer Olympics, the WNBA was poised for a great first season. On June 21st, 1997, the first WNBA game would take place between the New York Liberty and the Los Angeles Sparks. This would take place in Los Angeles. The game was nationally televised on NBC, and it would officially start the 1997 season. As with all sports leagues, revenue was key. In the 1997 season, there would be multiple different TV networks that would take on WNBA games, including the Walt Disney Company, NBC, and even the Lifetime Network. Like with today's young crop of superstars coming into the WNBA, the 1997 WNBA would focus solely on those young superstars, utilizing the marketing campaign dubbed We Got Next. They would focus their marketing efforts around young superstars like Rebecca Lobo, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, and others. Interestingly enough, however, Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Swoops would not have the great seasons that were expected. Leslie would underperform, and Cheryl Swoops would be coming off of her pregnancy and would be out most of the season. However, Rebecca Lobo did perform at the highest level and would take her team to the championship, where they would get defeated in the championship game by the Houston Comets. The league would be carried by WNBA MVP Cynthia Cooper, who is a superstar in the Houston Comets, and would lead them to victory in the championship game. This would mean that advertising for the WNBA would be changed to We Got Game instead of We Got Next, focusing on the current superstars. Overall, the WNBA would say they had a very successful inaugural season, with over 50 million viewers watching WNBA games on the 3 networks holding the rights. They would also have great success with attendance, especially the New York Liberty and the Los Angeles Sparks being 2 very popular teams during the time. With the success of the first season and the financial backing of the NBA, they decided to start expanding throughout the league. In 1998, they would add 2 more teams, with Detroit and Washington, and then in 1999 they would add teams in Orlando and Minnesota, bringing the league up to 12 teams. The league would also get a collective bargaining agreement, which would be the first in women's professional sports history. In 1999, they would decide to add 4 more teams for the 2000 season, including the most talked about team right now, the Indiana Fever, the Seattle Storm, the Miami Soul, and the Portland Fire, bringing the league up to 16 teams. Though with large expansion and backing of the NBA, there were some teams that struggled. Even though revenues were coming in from TV, from sports card companies, and other sponsorships, there would be teams that would struggle with attendance and really captivating audiences on TV. But even though that was the case, the WNBA had a lot of hope. In 1999, the main rival, American Basketball League, would fold, meaning many of their superstars, including Dawn Staley, the Olympic gold medalist, would join the WNBA. The 2000 season also brought the 4th championship for the Houston Comets, officially dubbing them the first dynasty for the WNBA. With the big 3 superstars, Cheryl Swoops, Tina Thompson, and Cynthia Cooper, they could not be stopped. In May of 2000, the Houston Comets would become the first WNBA team to be invited to the White House Rose Garden for a celebration of a championship. Before this, only men's teams ever traveled to the White House. By the end of the 2002 season, the WNBA teams were either sold to their NBA counterparts in the area, or they were sold to third-party outside owners. This meant many of the teams would be moved, including Utah being moved to San Antonio and Orlando being moved to Connecticut. At the same time, the LA Sparks finally got their superstar Lisa Leslie into gear. She would be the one who would carry the league going forward and become the face of the WNBA during the early 2000s. In 2003, former NBA superstar Bill Laimbeer would forever make his mark on the WNBA. He would take a struggling franchise that was 9-23 in the 2002 season, completely turning them around, in the next season being 25-9, becoming one of the best worst-to-first stories in history for the Detroit Shock. Laimbeer would make this team even better when he would take them to the 2003 finals, and the Shock would beat the Sparks, winning on a 3-pointer by Deanna Nolan. Laimbeer came into the league at the right time to bring more excitement for the WNBA as they began to struggle. In the 2003 season, they had lost the Cleveland Rockers due to the owners not wanting to continue to operate the team. And Val Ackerman, the first WNBA president, also resigned in 2005, meaning that they did not have the same support they once did. But with a star coach like Bill Laimbeer, it truly made a difference. The 2006 season would bring about the Chicago Sky entering the league as an expansion team. In 2006, they also honored the league for the longest running women's professional sports league for 10 consecutive seasons, and on their 10th anniversary, the WNBA released their all-decade team. In the mid-2000s, the team started to get more talented players, but there would also be disappointment. The Charlotte team would end up folding when the Charlotte Bobcats decided they no longer wanted to operate the team. Even though this occurred and there would be a dispersal draft, the league would be carried by 3 or 4 big-name teams, including the LA Sparks, the Phoenix Mercury, and the Detroit Shock being 3 of the big ones. The Detroit Shock, with Bill Laimbeer as their head coach, would have a lot of success, being the reigning champ in several seasons. In 2007, they would play in one of the biggest games, competing with the Phoenix Mercury, who had young superstars like Diana Taurasi. Join us next week as we take a further deep dive into the WNBA. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate all of you. Believable Truths.